Free will, our sense of authorship over choices, thoughts, and actions, has been one of civilization's foundational puzzles, tested by centuries of philosophy, theology, and now neuroscience. For most of human history, we have pictured the human mind as a sanctuary where desires and beliefs, however influenced by culture or circumstance, ultimately belong to the individual, determined neither entirely by external forces nor reducible to electrical patterns or genetic fate. This idea, deeply woven into the narratives of law, morality, and meaning, assumes a kind of inner privacy, an irreducible core wherein each person stands as agent rather than puppet. Imagine, then, a future on the horizon, a destination steadily approached as technology matures, in which thoughts and emotions can be deliberately engineered. Already, the early contours of such a world are taking shape, neurostimulation promising relief from depression, psychoactive pharmaceuticals refining cognitive states, neural implants offering potential for mood control, and machine learning predicting and guiding our choices with eerie precision. Today these technologies remain relatively blunt, but their trajectory is clear, ever more granular and potent. To ask how free will might change in such a reality is not merely to rehearse age-old debates about determinism. In the mechanistic universe envisioned by thinkers like Spinoza, every state follows its causes, but agency persists as long as people identify with their motives and are not compelled by outside will. In contrast, the theological traditions, Christian, Islamic, and others, have argued for a soul capable of choosing between true and false, good and evil, even amidst pressures both spiritual and material. Until recently, these conjectures occurred at a level removed from intricate interference. They presumed that while influences were many, the machinery of mind had an opacity and autonomy inaccessible to external manipulation by other humans. What happens if that barrier is breached? If neural engineering advances to the point that specific emotions, joy, fear, guilt, serenity, can be dialed up or down with a technical intervention, the boundaries between self-authored experience and externally constructed state begin to dissolve. Thought itself might come packaged and delivered much like software updates, tailored not from within but by pharmaceutical companies, state agencies, or even algorithms trained on billions of minds. Such transformations confront us with a new layer of moral ambiguity. Suppose a technology could eliminate crippling anxiety, or instill motivation to do good, or erase violent impulses. Would embracing it signify a courageous new freedom, or the abdication of something essential? We might understandably welcome the relief these innovations could bring. Think of the millions freed from cycles of mental illness or the enhancement of empathy among the powerful. Yet, as Aldous Huxley foresaw in Brave New World, to soothe suffering by suppressing depth of feeling risks a flattening not only of misery but of meaning. The notion of free will is inextricable not only from self-mastery but from the capacity to engage in inner struggle. Augustine's non posse non pecare, the inability not to sin, was redeemed, in the Christian narrative, by the gift of grace, a mysterious empowerment of the will toward good. If, by technical means, such grace is replaced by neurological tuning, is virtue still real or merely simulated? Moral responsibility could become a relic, not because we are mechanistically determined, but because the landscape itself is re-engineered for compliance or bliss. The question deepens when we consider social dynamics. In a world where mental states can be adjusted at will, or by others, the pluralism of values and the unpredictability of dissent may dwindle. Already, digital platforms manipulate emotion on a mass scale using feedback loops and attention engineering. Yet these remain indirect. The coming wave of neurotechnology promises interventions at the very substrate of thought. If governments or corporations are able to shape beliefs and dispositions, whether subtly or baldly, free will may erode, not all at once, but by imperceptible degrees. The Enlightenment ideal of the autonomous individual, so vigorously defended by Kant, assumes an independence of mind that would be radically compromised in the face of total psychological engineering. There is, however, another possibility, that by understanding and manipulating the machinery of mind, we may, paradoxically, expand the domain of free will. Demystifying compulsion, alleviating involuntary suffering, and opening up new realms of conscious control could enable forms of self-authorship previously impossible. This was hinted at in the existentialist insistence that authenticity requires knowledge of one's own motives. If awareness deepens, and we choose not only our actions but our very emotional palette, some might see such mastery as the ascent of freedom, not its decline. But even in this optimistic vision, danger lurks. The philosopher Harry Frankfurt argued that freedom of the will involves second-order desires, the ability to want something. Yet, if the conditions that generate these meta-desires are themselves subject to engineering, where does true authorship reside? If what I want is the result of prior programming, whether by myself or another, am I still the source, or am I merely the terminal point of a chain of interventions? The labyrinth deepens the farther we venture. The era ahead will likely demand a radical rethinking of responsibility, authenticity, and selfhood. We must devise both technological and philosophical safeguards, transparency, consent, and a deep humility before the mysteries of the mind. The ancient plea, know thyself, takes on fresh urgency in a world where the self becomes both object and instrument of intervention, increasingly open to design and redesign. Free will may not disappear, but it will be recast. No longer a given, its boundaries will be the subject of endless negotiation, between liberty and security, authenticity and relief, solitude and collective harmony. In engineering our inner worlds, we risk engineering away the very tensions that have made us human. Whether this is liberation, or a new form of servitude, remains the great question that only a future generation, more shaped than ever by hands not their own, will be fit to answer.